Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Goldberg. I'm a Director of Product Marketing at Snowflake, and I will be the moderator for today's event. Welcome to the Snowflake Office Hours with SnapAV, the leading manufacturer and distributor of audio, video, networking, surveillance, power, and structured wiring products for professional integrators. Over the next 30 minutes, we will spend time talking with Andrea Allred, Senior Database Administrator with SnapAV. Andrea has almost 20 years of experience with T-SQL, SQL admin, including install, config, tuning, security, and also MS SQL reporting services. She will be talking about her journey and success using Snowflake. As the event proceeds, please type any and all questions into the Q&A panel on the On24 dashboard. Then at the end of the event, we're going to leave time for me to verbally bounce your questions off of Andrea. And again, the majority of this office hours is really Andrea answering your questions. So by all means, please enter them into the On24 panel. So with that, and without further ado, Andrea, off to you.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. So today I'm going to talk about our journey through Snowflake, or getting used to Snowflake. I work for SnapAV. It's a smart home company. So we do a lot of smart home automation, but we also automate businesses too. So for people's different environments, they can say, hey, Alexa, turn on my lights. Hey, Alexa, turn off my lights. Hey, Google, turn on my lights. Different things like that. Sound systems throughout the entire house, cameras, video, different things like that. So it's a really awesome company. Our analytics are super important to us. They're absolutely essential to help us keep our costs low for our customers, because we work directly with dealers, and then those dealers sell to their own individual customers. So that dealer relationship is super important. So we focus on getting them good numbers as quickly as possible. We are all around the globe, so we have many different versions of SAP as we've acquired different companies. Right now, we're dealing with 4 versions of SAP, and they're in multiple places: Australia, the UK, and then 2 in the US. Along with that, we also have Salesforce, we have a whole bunch of homegrown applications, and then we have our very own portal that we use for our website. All of these places are collecting data and spitting data back out, and we need to build reports that join all of that together. So before Snowflake, we were bringing all of that data into a single SQL server, and we would process that data overnight. It would take about 13 hours after everything was restored. So if you include restores and everything, it was probably 17 hours. So by the time that we had finished all of our restores and all of that data processing, everything was at least 17 to 24 hours out of date, depending on the time zone that it came in on, which meant that our data was stale, completely stale. And it's very hard to switch directions quickly when your data is that stale. So as we required more and more companies, that process has gotten longer and longer and longer. And we knew that we had to solve this problem. That was when we got into Snowflake. And we started compiling all of that data together in the SQL Server and then sending it up to Snowflake to process. And we attached Tableau to the front end of Snowflake and started giving these reports out to our salespeople. And they were like, okay, so how old is the data? And we're like, it's live. And they couldn't believe it, because we were replicating everything into our SQL Server and then sending it up. So within 15 minutes of it hitting our SQL Server, it is up in Snowflake, which is beautiful. The sales department came running and screaming to us going, we have a problem because the data is changing and it's the middle of the day. We're like, no, you don't have a problem. That's live data. You're seeing live statistics. You're seeing the sales that are coming in. You're seeing how much people are buying. You're seeing what's working for you, what's not working for you. You can actually tell a salesperson to adjust their pitch based on what sales are coming in, which is super awesome for them. So all of that sped our whole process up. But in addition to that, we got the bonus of our Tableau reports moving faster. So originally our Tableau reports, because they were sitting on top of SQL Server would take its time to process, and then Tableau takes its time to process. Well, Snowflake, as you know, is a lot faster when it processes. And so the only time we're waiting now is that Tableau processing time. And people were like, oh my gosh, my report's done, it's ready. It's been a big adjustment for some of our engineers because they run these queries and they're used to getting up and getting a cup of coffee or something like that while they're waiting for a query to finish. But now they don't do that. They can sit and see the query finish. If they have time to get up and get a cup of coffee, their query is probably a bad query. And so that's something fabulous that we've been able to note. We also had to figure out permissions, which was kind of a big issue for us because we wanted to set up a way that we could bill directly back to an individual department on their processing if that was needed. So when we set up all of our permissions, we set it up so that marketing had a special group, and marketing also has an individual database along with the base database that we're using for all the data that's being fed in. Because we gave marketing their own database, we also gave them their own warehouse. And when I first started with Snowflake, I didn't understand what a warehouse was. It was a little confusing to me. Once I figured out that that was the processing engine and not like a physical database or anything like that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool because I can absolutely figure out how much marketing is using on their processing. I can figure out how much sales is using on their processing, and then I can go back and bill their department for that processing so that IT isn't just like a huge money, I don't know, like the waste of money or the black pool of money, right? That everyone's like, oh, IT spends all the money. No, it's marketing. You used a lot of processing, or sales, you used a lot of processing. The other thing that I like about the separated warehouses is that when finance is running end of month numbers, they are not slowed down by anybody else. And they're not slowing anyone else down. If somebody's running a bad query in the sales warehouse, it doesn't affect marketing and finance. They still are running fine, but sales will slow down. So it's awesome to me the way that it's all set up. And we've really been impressed with how we are able to quickly give these numbers back, give the data back, and do all of our processing and cleaning at the same time. So that's the main reason that we absolutely love Snowflake. It's been exciting, and I cannot wait as we move further along this journey to be able to do more with it. So, Joe, I know that we probably have some questions coming in. What questions do we have?
Yeah, sure. So let's jump in. And also, I do want to remind folks that the remainder of the call is really your questions for Andrea, so definitely submit them via the On24 box, the Q&A box. Yeah, so a couple rolled in. I think one here is just a question. The question is just, did Tableau replace SSRS completely for you?
That is a fantastic question. So SSRS has kind of become our legacy piece, but Tableau doesn't do everything that SSRS did. And the nice thing about Snowflake is that because you can use the Snow ODBC connector, that means that you can still connect SSRS reports to that if you want. SSRS reports are great for the tabular data, whereas Tableau is better for the visual data. And so we actually still use both. But we are moving more towards Tableau. Great question.
Okay, and another one is, what's your estimated daily volume and the size of the data warehouses being used in Snowflake to process your data so fast?
That's another great question. Okay, our estimated daily volume. So we are still only pushing a little bit. Everyone, I hear people talk about billions of rows. We do probably 10 million rows a day. So it's not massive, but the amount of data that we have is over 8 terabytes. So we were reprocessing all of that through SQL Server every single day. And I know that's not massive for most companies, but for us to be able to reprocess all of that up in Snowflake was amazing. We were absolutely killing our SQL Server.
Gotcha. Another related question is it's kind of a repeat question, but it's slightly different. They're asking about how many concurrent users query the data.
Oh, that's another good one. We have about 200 Tableau people that are querying data. The thing that's nice is that we don't just have to be in one place. So we have multiple offices across the globe, and people are querying that 24/7. And so they are spread out, but they are able to access Snowflake anywhere. They don't have to directly be on our network if the network's having an issue or something like that. And that has been absolutely awesome. We also have set up the Azure AD piece, which was released, I think, October-ish. And it has been fantastic for administration because I don't have to continuously create new logins. So I've loved that.
Okay. Then there's actually, this is pretty typical for an office hours. I see about 4 questions on this. They're asking basically, roughly, they're trying to figure out what is the ETL process. So in other words, what ETL tools do you use to get data from the data sources, and specifically SQL Server, over to Snowflake? So the tech and also any sort of processes.
Oh, absolutely. So right now we're using HVR. I think it's something high something replication. It is fantastic. So we actually use HVR to connect all of our SAP instances to our SQL Server, and then our SQL Server sends it up through HVR up to Snowflake. So that it's real time, and it is the nice thing about HVR is that they were able to configure burst tables. So it's using what SQL Server is good at by doing the individual transactional reading, but when it goes to Snowflake, it loads into a burst table and then pops it in. So you're not getting the massive performance impact that you would get with regular transactions going into Snowflake.
Okay, so actually on that note, do you use any sort of custom, or sorry, off-the-shelf ETL tools like Matillion or Informatica or anything like that?
We don't right now because HVR did what we needed it to do. Because I could, and it's super simple because I could set up those individual tables and then just have it send the data up. Then I can process it while I'm up in Snowflake. I am still looking for the piece where I can do a lot of the like scheduling of processing. I know that people have mentioned JAMS and a couple of those other ones, but I still am looking for the one that will fit my needs. Okay.
And do you stream the data into Snowflake, or is it batch processed?
The way that HVR has it set up is that it loads into burst tables, and so it's a batch process. It's not an individual stream.
Okay. Then let's see here. There's 2 questions around Tableau. So the first one is, when you do your reports in Tableau, do you do extracts or live views in Tableau against Snowflake? And if it's live, how fast is it?
We do both, and it will absolutely depend when you're doing speed for those on how much processing you're doing in the Tableau piece. The retrieving of the data from Snowflake is super fast, but if you're doing a lot of calculations in Tableau and different things like that, it's going to still have the same amount of speed that you would have with regular Tableau, because Tableau does take that time to get those calculations done.
Okay. Then someone's kind of, I think they're asking around, what did you, before Snowflake, was there any kind of data prep tool you used to put data into Tableau?
No, we were pulling it direct, well, kind of. So we were using a lot of stored procedures, SSRS packages to process data overnight, and then it was just a lot of code. So there was a lot of code that would load up different tables, and it would go into a stage table, and then it would go into like the prep before the switch table, and it would switch them off really fast. So it was still stale data, but we were trying to do everything we could to make it look like the report was never down. We would still build views, and even some tables we would prep for Tableau in SQL Server using like just agent jobs.
Okay, gotcha. And another one is, how do you give other teams transparency on their Snowflake usage and or costs?
That is fantastic. So we have not started billing other teams yet, but we have the option to do it so that we can. We haven't started saying, hey, we're going to charge you for this, because we're still getting everyone used to Snowflake. We're still getting everyone used to the reports and things like that. We launched our production version in October. So we're still introducing the company. Here's how it works. Here's how it moves. Here's how fast it is and what to expect from it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And also, just for folks on the line, there are ways, in Snowflake where you can create visualizations to show teams their usage and their costs. And then also Snowflake has something called resource monitors, where basically Snowflake will alert you if a certain sort of if a certain data warehouse is using a certain amount of credits where you might get into cost issues because people are overusing a warehouse or writing bad SQL queries. So there are ways to sort of monitor usage of Snowflake and alert on that.
And I love the resource monitor because it will email you. You can have it shut off immediately or just email you to warn you. And I think that's fantastic. There's also the administrator view where you can see who's using what. So if you see that marketing's using a big chunk of your credits, because it is a pie chart, you can say, hey, what are you guys doing differently? Because maybe they've hired a new developer that's causing Cartesian joins where you're getting a lot of duplicate data and it's not joined properly. Or maybe they're just like testing some new things out. So it's great to have that conversation and to keep an eye on those statistics.
Okay. And Andre, I'm sorry, I think I might have missed this one. Did you say you're running Snowflake on Azure?
We are running on AWS.
AWS.
We do plan to move to Azure because right now we're actually doing a POC where we are going to move that. Our SQL server right now is on-prem. We're moving that up to Azure. We're checking right now what the egress cost is, that cost between moving from Azure over to AWS. And my guess is that we will be moving our AWS instance of Snowflake into Azure shortly.
Gotcha.
But I did mention that we do have our Azure Active Directory joined to our AWS version of Snowflake.
Perfect. Gotcha. Yeah, and for those on the line, just for those new to Snowflake, we're basically essentially the same product, same code, same UI, same service, but it's available on either AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. And also we do have ways you can replicate even across clouds. So you could be running your primary on, say, AWS East, and then replicate it over to GCP in Central. And if AWS, God forbid, goes down, even globally, you could still rely on GCP as your replicated backup site. So we do have the ability to be cross-cloud and multi-cloud. Okay,
that's cool. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, and the GCP is relatively new. Just a couple months ago, we announced it. So
nice.
We are future-proof. All right. So one question then another one rolled in. It said, "Would you keep audit?" Wait, let's see here. Okay, so I can answer the first part. It's asking about, do you keep audit trails and logging data in Snowflake? Do you use another service? And just for folks on the line, I'll let you know that we actually do. Snowflake has a table, within Snowflake for every account where we do sort of track audit metrics in terms of what's being done on the system and who's doing what. But the question for you then is, Andrea, is how do you leverage those audit trails inside of Snowflake and the logging trails, or do you use some kind of third-party technology or any custom scripts to track usage and auditing on Snowflake?
So I'm still very new to tracking all of those pieces. If there's a problem going on, I will go and look at that user's history and pull their query because I can do that and see what they're running and review it. But I have not done the actual audit tracking yet. That's on my list of things to do.
Gotcha. Okay, someone asked, what do you use for SQL, DDL, and DML source code management?
We are using Git, Git.
Gotcha.
And I can't remember if it's GitLab or GitHub. It's one of those.
Okay, gotcha. No problem. So another question is, what other data warehouses did you evaluate when you were looking at Snowflake, and why did you pick Snowflake?
We looked at another version of SQL Server Data Warehouse. The main reason we actually picked Snowflake was because our architect had used Snowflake in the past and really liked how it worked. And so he was kind of the champion for Snowflake. Because he knew the ins and outs, and he knew that if there was a problem that came up, he could contact the Snowflake team and they would be incredibly responsive. That was the driving force for us that made us want to pick it. So,
gotcha. Yep. And do you use zero copy cloning or time travel in Snowflake?
So I've recently learned about time travel. I have not used it yet, but I love the concept and I love the idea of being able to do it. I have used the cloning and it was fantastic because I was able to set up like a dev environment within minutes. It's something that would have taken me hours to do in any other platform, and I was able to do it within minutes. And I was just like, "This is so cool."
Yeah. No, it's pretty pretty fantastic. And for those new to Snowflake, what time travel does is, as it sounds, it lets you kind of go back in time. So if you accidentally, let's say, deleted you dropped a table, a warehouse, you misnamed an entire column, you can use time travel to kind of go back in time to a certain time or a certain query that you ran and kind of undo your changes. So it lets you unravel user mistakes. So it's great as you don't have to run and scramble and try to find, backup tape and backup instances. You just use time travel for that.
So with SQL Server, I've had to bring back a table for someone before. And in order to do that, I had to restore the backup, the differential, and some transaction logs to another location, and then go find that specific table and try to roll forward to like the specific minute with restoring those so that I didn't lose any data, and then bring that back over. It's a nightmare. And so the time travel, the whole concept behind it got me so excited when I heard about it. I was like, no way, this is great.
Yeah, no, it's a big lifesaver for folks.
Yeah.
And then also the zero copy cloning that I touched on, what that essentially is as it sounds with Snowflake, which is a couple clicks in the UI, you can clone any database object, which is a couple of clicks. And when you clone something, you're not actually doing sort of as copy paste. You're not doubling your storage. It's all done via metadata magic with pointers to original data. So you can clone, again, tables, and so different departments can have access to the different clones, and any operations they do on their clones don't affect the base object. And again, it's done without full copying of data, so it's very efficient in terms of storage usage. And a lot of customers will appreciate that.
And as you make changes on that data for the copy of it, it will start taking up some storage space, but a lot less than you would use with a full copy of that data.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's hear. What are some lessons learned from your implementation of Snowflake?
Oh, my goodness. We tried multiple ETL tools to get it to work, and that was huge. It was a huge eye-opening experience for one, because there's a lot of very expensive ETL tools out there. And I think there's becoming more and more tools. We started working on this probably 2 years ago, just trying to figure out how we were going to accomplish it and everything. We finally found the ETL tool that we wanted last March. And that was when we picked HVR. And after that, it kind of supercharged the whole project and was able to push everything forward. So figuring out your ETL tool is a big one. I learned a lot about permissions really fast, and we had to sit down and map out how we were going to do permissions so that it wasn't a massively cumbersome process. And then another thing was just how we were going to structure our data when it landed. I learned that when you open it up in Tableau, the tables that I'm using for HVR were visible. And so I had to readjust a bunch of settings to fix those tables to be in a different database so that they didn't see in Tableau the tables that were loading, the bursting tables that were loading, in addition to the tables that are going to be there for consumption. So there was a few of those lessons. Oh, I'm trying to think what else. It's been such a journey. Yeah. I love that SnowSQL is very similar to just SQL, so it makes a lot of sense. But the thing that has helped me the absolute most is the Snowflake resource site. So if you just go to the Snowflake site, it's like their version of Google for it. And every time I put in a question for like, how do I write this syntax or something like that, it takes me to the Snowflake resource site. And that's where I'm able to see examples of how to write everything and how to set it out. And that has been a lifesaver, because there's a few times when I needed to revoke permissions to something really quickly and couldn't because I didn't know how, and was able to essentially Google it on the Snowflake site and bring it up.
Great. So a couple others have rolled in. One of them is, I don't know if you touched on this earlier. If you did, we can kind of skip it. But it says, how do you pull in data from SAP, S4 and BW4, and do you replicate data, or you pull it in real time?
So it's real-time replication with HVR. So HVR is the way that we pull it out of SAP into our SQL Server. So we pull it out of SAP into the SQL Server. That's where we land it so we can combine it and send it up to Snowflake using HVR again.
And then another one is, what data formats are you using in Snowflake? Is it all columnar? Is there any semi-structured data?
We have not started using semi-structured data. That is on our roadmap to use, but we are not there yet.
Okay. And for just folks new to Snowflake, Snowflake, of course, we can take in structured data, but we can also take in semi-structured data natively. So things like JSON, Avro, Parquet, we can pull them all in. And you don't need to modify them at all. You can just put them in raw and then use dot notation to SQL dot notation to search through those all that semi-structured data in Snowflake. So that's nice in helping eliminate data silos, where maybe you have your semi-structured data outside of your data warehouse. Another question here is, I don't know get it all, so this one's all for you, but it says, does time travel have a function equivalent to rebase in Git?
I don't know.
All right, me neither, so we're not alone. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Not sure. But again, I encourage you, if you do want to learn more about it, I mean, literally just Google Snowflake and time travel. Our documentation is phenomenal, and it'll walk you through how time travel works.
It's so good.
Yeah. So let's hear. It says, what IDE tools do you use to write queries and interact with Snowflake, Datagrip, dbeaver, etc.?
Okay, so we've tried Aqua Data Studio just to interact with it, but I end up mainly working in the interface that is available through Snowflake, just the web page, because it's comfortable to me. I'm used to kind of a query analyzer type format, and so it works for me for now. I'm not going super in depth into reprocessing everything, so I am getting it ready, but I don't do a lot of the engineer work either, so I'm not super helpful there. I do mostly the database administration work. So.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you have any other tools that use the data from Snowflake other than Tableau? So maybe using ETL to bring data back to on-premise for any other data analysis?
So we also can connect. We've been able to connect Excel, Access, and then a couple other programs that are specific to our company to bring data back. But we haven't used anything that's out on the market other than Tableau.
Okay. And then when you bring it back, what is it back on-prem? What's the use case there?
So a lot of our finance department really loves to be able to see things in a spreadsheet and then work with those numbers and play with those numbers and see what's going to happen if we do X, Y, Z.
Gotcha.
So they like to, it's kind of their process. So we allow them to connect Excel to Snowflake.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's see. Another question came in around ETL. Did you POC any other ETL tools, commercial ETL tools, before deciding to go with HVR?
We did. We did Fivetran. We talked to, I can't remember what the name of the Oracle one. It's Gold something. I can't remember it. We did try the Oracle one, and then was there a third one? Maybe that was it. Maybe it was those three that we compared them all to see what they would do. And the HVR just fit our needs for this particular use case.
Gotcha. Okay. Another question is, how are the costs of Snowflake in relation to your expectations?
So
you can be honest. You can be honest.
No. Because we're not doing a ton of processing that's heavy processing yet, because we're still getting it all set up. It has not been scary for us. But I know that it's going to grow. That's one of the reasons that I keep an eye on the administrative dashboard, so that I can see where we're at credits-wise and I can see where we're at usage-wise.
Gotcha. Yep. Another question, well, just for folks new on the line, because it's asked a lot, people ask, how do we charge? And it's really, there's two main ways you charge. One is by storage, the data you're storing inside of Snowflake, and that's essentially a pass-through of the cloud provider's storage costs. So let's say on AWS, it's $23 a terabyte a month after compression, which is very low. The other way we charge is based on compute. So as you're spinning up virtual warehouses or compute clusters, if you will, inside of Snowflake to do ETL jobs and run BI queries, that's where you're going to get charged as well. Because essentially under the covers, that would be using things like an EC2 images or Azure VMs, and that's the second we charge. So it's based on compute and storage. Let's see. Someone just commented, the Oracle tool is called Golden Gate.
Thank
someone
you.
said.
Yes,
Yeah,
Golden Gate. That's it.
there we
Thank you.
go. Okay. And what we'll do is I'll probably just one more question here in the interest of time. We just kind of hit the 10:30 mark. So, so I know this question really depends based on the size of the org, but someone's asking, what's the minimal number of staff you recommend supporting Snowflake? And I know it depends, but maybe how do you approach it at Snap?
Okay, so the way we have three that we're using to support it, and I'll tell you the three. So we have an engineer that is responsible for building the queries and different things that are going to be processing in Snowflake. We have the DBA, which is me, who's handling the permissions and keeping an eye on the storage and just basic overall administration if I need to time travel stuff or if I need to help troubleshoot queries, different things like that. And then we have the business analyst who is in charge of the Tableau pieces and helping people with the views that they are creating in Snowflake so that they can do them properly and know how to build them. So it's a small team of three. It's not super heavy on administration needs. So I'm also still supporting like SQL Server, and the business analyst is also still supporting like legacy SSRS, and the engineer is still supporting some legacy work in SQL Server. So, and again, we are in the process of finishing moving stuff. So we are wearing multiple hats. I would say if you are going to add additional people, the engineering space is where you'd want to add them.
Okay. And then one last question, I'll just take a cut at this. Someone's asking about how do you scale up to enhance performance. And at a very high level, at a high level is really, it's just a little bit of 101 is you create a compute cluster or a virtual warehouse inside of Snowflake when you need to do some kind of operation like loading in data or executing a BI query. Under the covers, again, that's EC2 nodes or Azure VM nodes or Google Compute. But essentially, what you could do is increase the size of a single cluster, if you will. Increase sort of the T-shirt size of it is what we use in Snowflake terms. It just adds more nodes underneath it. That's called sizing up, and that's good to more quickly execute a single job, like a single query that's complicated. You can just allocate more nodes behind it. And we'll scale up to something like 128 physical nodes in a cluster. So that's scaling up, and that's for executing like a single job. The other option is scaling out, where you make it multi-cluster, where you just make sort of copies of that single cluster, and then what they can do is in parallel they can work together. But that's really to address concurrency. So it's not a single job you're trying to execute. It's more of concurrency where you have many users essentially running similar queries against the same data. So you can scale up or out, but it really depends on if you're trying to get like a single job to run faster, or if you're trying to deal with concurrency challenges. So at SnapAV, then how do you find yourself scaling? Is it increasing size or scaling out?
Yeah, so we use the dynamic, being able to dynamically adjust those warehouse sizes, and I don't have to usually go very big. A couple of times I have taken my extra small warehouses up to like a medium just so that I could get some processing done very quickly, and then I'll take it back down to extra small. And if I notice that a warehouse is having issues or it's slowing down or something like that, I'll take it up to a small, see if that clears up the issues. If it doesn't, then I can take it up a little bit more to a medium. And I'm okay to take them up and down a little bit during high volume times, but I'm keeping an eye on costs, so I'm trying to avoid doing that if I don't have to. And usually it's so fast that I don't have to. But sometimes when if my replication gets behind because I turned off the agent or something like that, I can scale up that warehouse so that my ETL, the specific warehouse that I have for ETL, I can scale that up to a medium and let it process everything really fast so that it can load my data. I love it. I love being able to run a query and change my warehouse sizes. That's awesome to me.
Yeah, especially compared to the physical world where you just can't do that.
Yeah, you live with it.
Yeah. So excellent. So we've pretty much answered all the questions that have rolled in, and we've hit the past the 30-minute mark. So we're out of time, and we're going to wrap up the office hours now. I do want to give a big thank you to Andrea and SnapAV for the great content, and a massive thank you to all of you in the audience for the great questions. A reminder that this is being recorded. It'll be sent out to all of you you'll get an email link to this recording. Hopefully we'll see you at the next office hours. And in the interim, I'd encourage all of you to visit snowflake.com to learn more about us. You'll see case studies there and videos and documentation, and also the community that Andrea mentioned earlier. And also on the homepage, the top right, you'll see a very easy way to sign up for a free 30-day trial where you get $400 worth of free credits of Snowflake. And once you sign up, we'll also send you a very simple tutorial that points you to demo data that you can then load into Snowflake and run queries on it and join it. And you'll have that aha moment on Snowflake within 15, 30 minutes. So I encourage you to take advantage of our free trial. So with that, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.